mock draft season is starting to heat up. And although we don't have the full draft order solidified yet, I thought this would be a good time to kind of give you guys my first 2-round mock draft. So you get 2 rounds in this mock draft. So it's going to be a bit of a longer video. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, coming in at number 1, we do got the Chicago Bears. And there's not going to be trades in this mock draft because it's a 2-round mock draft and the draft order is not fully set yet. But there will be one exception, and that's going to be the first overall pick. Because I do think the Bears are going to take Caleb Williams with the first overall pick, I will be trading Justin Fields in this video just to have a bit more realism. Now, the question is, who's going to trade up for him, or who's going to trade for him? What's the return going to be like? And for this video, I'm really liking the idea of Justin Fields going to the Atlanta Falcons, pairing him up with Bijan, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and maybe another weapon down the line. Like, that's a very enticing pick, especially if they get a head coach like Ben Johnson. Like, oh my gosh, that would be insanely fun to watch. So, before we even start this draft, we're going to go to the Chicago Bears, Justin Fields. Now, what type of return are we going to get for Justin Fields? I mean, hey, if you can get the 8th overall pick for Justin Fields, I would be over the moon if I was a Bears fan. Do I think that's going to happen? Probably not. Although Justin Fields had a really strong end to the season, I still think he's more worth a, maybe a 2nd round pick and a next year 3rd or something along the lines of that. But for this video, and since, multiple year picks aren't going to matter in this mock draft, we're just going to trade Justin Fields for the 43rd overall pick. Like I said, they'll probably would also get like a next year's 3rd, maybe this year's 4th, but that's not going to be really important in this mock draft. So we're going to do Justin Fields for the 43rd overall pick. We're going to force a trade because it probably wouldn't work if not. And then we are going to start the draft. And since we did trade Justin Fields with the first overall pick, it's going to be a quarterback. Some people think it could be Drake May. Jaden Daniels has rose up so many people's boards, and by the time the draft comes around, he might be a top 1-2 pick. But for right now, I really like Caleb Williams. I really like his, ability to improvise, and I think he's just a better version of Justin Fields, and I know Bears fans are going to get mad at that. It resets the rookie clock. You're going to have to pay Justin Fields if you keep him. He's going to demand a lot of money, and it's really just so beneficial for a team, especially that's not quote-unquote competing yet, for a team like the Bears to get a rookie quarterback who's going to be really good most likely and not have to pay him for 5 years, or at least not pay him a lot. Like, that's a really, really advantageous spot to be in. So for the first overall pick, we are going to go with Caleb Williams. Moving on to the Washington Commanders. I was a believer in Sam Howell. About halfway through the season, I was thinking that they were going to stick with him for the next season and kind of just building around him to see what they had in him. But he had a really, really poor end to the season, which makes me really think that they got to go quarterback here. And it's a bit funny that my quarterback too is Drake May, and probably who I'm going to select here. And it's just going to be one UNC quarterback succeeding the other. And so we're going to take Drake May to succeed Sam Howell. I just think Drake May is able to operate in an offense really, really efficiently. Now, he is able to improvise like a guy like Caleb Williams, maybe not to that, top tier ability, but he can improvise. He can just work within structure, make the right throws, anticipate at a high level. Like, he's just a really solid quarterback. And I think both Caleb Williams and Drake May would have went higher than any quarterback last year. Like, I think they would have went above Bryce Young. I would think they would have went above CJ Stroud, because CJ Stroud is a prospect. Had some questions, obviously we know what he's done now, but we didn't know that at the time, and a lot of people were a bit lower on CJ Stroud. So I think both those quarterback prospects are better than anyone in last year's class. Moving on to number 3, we got the New England Patriots, and with the Patriots moving on from Bill Belichick and kind of in promoting Jerod Mayo to be their head coach, he's kind of hinted towards in an interview that they're going to be looking for a quarterback in this year's draft. And some people might think that Jaden Daniels isn't worth a top 3 selection, but I think he is. I mean, with a team like the Patriots who need a quarterback, as Mac Jones is not the answer, nor is Bailey Zappi, I think just getting a quarterback, taking a swing, if it doesn't work out, it's unfortunate, but you got to take the swing on quarterbacks. And with a guy like Jaden Daniels with such high upside and a guy that's been improving every single year since his Arizona State days, I mean, you got to take the swing on him. I think Jaden Daniels could be a huge home run. Moving on to the Arizona Cardinals. This is going to be the first non-quarterback off the board, and I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best non-quarterback. And, the Cardinals don't necessarily need a tackle as much as they do just weapons to help Kyler Murray out. They took Paris Johnson last year from Ohio State, so why not get a good receiver? They can bring back Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, and they could have a really good dynamic duo with the speed of Hollywood Brown and the separation and big threat ability of a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. I think that would be a really, really fun offense. Moving on to the 5th pick, we got the Chargers. A bit of a disappointing season for them. Mike Williams was injured. Keenan Allen is getting up there in age. Austin Eckler is regressing a lot. Might not even be back. So I think the Chargers just need to kind of update their offense and their weapons for Justin Herbert. And it's really going to be between Malik Neighbors and Brock Bowers. Now, Justin Fields does like throwing to his tight ends, and Gerald Everett's not really a Donald Parham's. He had a good season, but he's not a big threat tight end. And with a guy like Brock Bowers, who's a really, really good tight end prospect, he can block, he can separate, he can make big plays in the receiving game. I mean, I think that would be a really, really fun target for Justin Herbert. So we're going to go at Brock Bowers here with the 5th pick. Moving on to the Giants, I think this is a very obvious pick. If Malik Neighbors falls to them at 6, you take Malik Neighbors. Now, where it gets a bit tricky is if Malik Neighbors is off the board, as well as Marvin Harrison Jr., then you got to have a bit of a question on your hands. But with Malik Neighbors still on the board, you're going to get the best receiver you've probably had since Odell Beckham. And, Malik Neighbors is the LSU receiver, so they might be getting their next Odell Beckham. And as a Giants fan, fingers crossed that is the case. Moving on to number 7, we do got the Titans. And I really think this is a prime offensive tackle spot. You got your choice of the tackles of this class. And you got 2 really good ones in Joe Alt and Olu Fashanu. You drafted Peter Skoronski last year to be, that really good guard. But your tackles are still a bit of a question. You got Andre Dillard. Who else do you have? You have Nicholas Petit-Ferrer. Dylan Raduns or something like that is also one of their tackles. Bottom line, you need a tackle. You need to revamp the offensive line to help protect your new quarterback in Will Levis. So with that being said, I think I'm going to go with Joe Alt here. I do think I go back and forth all the time between who I like better, whether it's Joe Alt or Olu Fashanu. It depends on the day really up until this point. And today I'm feeling Joe Alt. Joe Alt's more of that technically sound guy who might not have as high of a ceiling as a guy like Olu Fashanu, but he's still just a super, super solid offensive tackle. Moving on to the 8th pick, we do got the Atlanta Falcons, and they just got Justin Fields in the trade. So now the question is, what do you do next? You could go with a guy like Olu Fashanu and help protect Justin Fields and just keep building that offense up. Or you could go with your pick of the edge rushers or cornerbacks. Pair up a cornerback with, why is his name slipping my AJ Terrell. But I think the best choice you can make right now is, maybe even Rome Odunze and just really build those weapons there. But I think I'm going to go with Olu Fashanu here. Just help protect Justin Fields. Also blocking wasn't amazing for Bijan Robinson last season. So I think just getting a nice tackle to pair up with, what's his name? Caleb McGarry. Yeah, to pair up with Caleb McGarry and replacing Jake Matthews, who's been playing good but is getting up there in age. I think Olu Fashanu will be a great pick for them there at 8. Moving on to number 9, we got the Chicago Bears picking again. So they already got Caleb Williams. Now the question is, do they look towards their defense or keep building up that offense? And I think the best choice for them is to probably look towards defense, just because they would have their pick of whatever defender they want of the class, because so far we've had nothing but offense being taken. So do you want to go cornerback? Do you want to go edge rusher? And I think the no-brainer pick is to go edge rusher here. You have your choice between Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, Leatu Latu, and I really do think, although I don't know if Dallas Turner is the best edge rusher in the class, I do think he's going to be the first one taken. You could also You'd also look to go with Jared Verse. I think Leatu Latu might be the best, but with the injury concerns, he's going to drop down a lot of people's boards. And Dallas Turner just has so much upside that it's going to be hard to pass on him if you need an edge rusher. So we are going to go with Dallas Turner here with the 9th pick. Moving on to the Jets, I think it's a no-brainer. You got to go either Rome Odunze or Talise Fuaga / JC Latham. So it's really a question of, do you want to take your pick of the 3rd receiver off the board or the 3rd tackle off the board? And for me, I think it's way more important to build that offensive line up because Aaron Rodgers is up there in age, nearly 40. So he's not the best, he doesn't have the best mobility. Plus, he's coming back off of a torn Achilles. Like, his mobility is going to be non-existent. And so you really want to build the offensive line so that way he doesn't have to try to escape the pocket as much as, he's been accustomed to. So we are going to go with a tackle. Now, do you want to go with Talise Fuaga or do you want to go with JC Latham? I lean more towards JC Latham. He's more just that hog molly that I really like. Although I do like Talise Fuaga, I think JC Latham could probably move to left tackle a bit easier than a guy like Talise Fuaga. So we're going to go with JC Latham here. Moving on to number 11, we got the Minnesota Vikings. And this could be a quarterback spot, but I don't know how I feel about that. I do think Kirk Cousins is going to come back and run it back with the Vikings for another year. So we're going to look away from quarterback, and we're going to look to go probably on the defensive end. We could get our first pick of the cornerbacks. We could have got like Nate Wiggins, who's extremely young. He's got a lot of potential. Cooley McKinstry, Terrion Arnold, the teammates from Alabama are really good cornerback prospects. And also a guy like, where's he at? Oh, Cooper DeJean, who I think is the best cornerback on the class, but I don't think he's going to be the first one taken. I really do think the first cornerback taken is going to be Nate Wiggins, and the Vikings need help on that defense, so Nate Wiggins is going to be the pick here for me. Moving on to the Broncos, I think a lot of people are going to disagree with this pick, and, maybe even myself included, but from everything you hear, the NFL is extremely high on J.J. McCarthy. The Broncos need a quarterback, and, I think J.J. McCarthy fits Sean Payton's system really, really well. If you think back to Sean Payton's days with the Saints, Drew Brees was an undersized, kind of smaller guy, and J.J. McCarthy is as well. I think Sean Payton is probably going to fall in love with J.J. McCarthy. I don't think Russell Wilson's going to be back. I think they're going to try to do something with him, trade him, cut him, something. So I think the pick is going to be J.J. McCarthy. And I know a lot of people are going to be mad at that I'm picking JJ over Michael Penix and Bo Nix, but I think that could very well be a reality come draft day. And so, although I'm not the biggest fan of JJ McCarthy, I think this is definitely a possibility. Moving on to the Las Vegas Raiders, who was also in need of a quarterback, as well as the Saints. You could look to go Michael Penix or Bo Nix, but taking the 5th quarterback with the 13th pick, I don't see that happening. You could easily wait till day 2 and try to get a quarterback and kind of, just try to get a steal. So I'm not going to go with quarterback here. What I am going to look for is defense. We could go with a Jerzon Newton, Jared Verse, but I think we're going to go with the 2nd cornerback off the board. And is it going to be Kool-Aid, Terrion Arnold, Cooper DeJean? I think Kool-Aid McKinstry. I'm still not there with Terrion Arnold yet. I think Terrion Arnold's the 4th best cornerback in the class. So I'm going to go with Kool-Aid McKinstry. I think he has less questions on if he can be an outside corner like a guy like Cooper DeJean. I do think Cooper DeJean's an outside corner, but there could be questions with that. And so we're going to go with Kool-Aid McKinstry here with the 13th pick. Moving on to the Saints, like I said, they could also look quarterback, but I think that's a bit too rich for my liking. They could also wait till day 2 maybe. So we're going to look to go with a tackle. And with Talise Fuaga here, I think this is a perfect kind of spot for Talise Fuaga. I don't think he's a top 10 pick, but I also don't think he's going to fall out of the top 20 picks. So Trevor Penning was definitely an experiment that did not work out for the Saints. So they are in need of a tackle. And why not get a guy like Talise Fuaga, who's I think is a bit more polish of a, just player than a guy like Trevor Penning. I was never a fan of Trevor Penning, so Toulouse Fuaga, I think, is a great pick there at 14. Moving on to the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, this works out perfectly for him. With Anthony Richardson coming back, you're going to want him to get as many targets as possible and make life as easy as possible for him. So why not get a guy like Rome Odunze to be that number one receiver? Because I'm not as high on Michael Pittman as some people are. I think he's a really, really good, second option. So pairing Rome Odunze up with Michael Pittman on the other side and then a guy in the slot like Josh Downs, I mean, that's a very, very, very good offense for Anthony Richardson to come back to. So that'd be a really exciting offense. Moving on to 16, we got the Seahawks. Now, this could be a Cooper DeJean spot, but probably not. I mean, they got Devin Witherspoon, Reek Woolen, so that would be more of a slot kind of guy or maybe a safety, which Cooper DeJean could play. I do think they could go edge as well. And with Jared Verse and Leatu Latu still on the board, I think they would more likely go with Jared Verse. You could also go with Jerzon Newton because I'm pretty sure Leonard Williams is going to hit free agency, so they could be looking to replace him, but they did trade for him, so they're probably going to want to bring him back. So I'm going to look to go with Jared Verse. Pairing up Jared Verse with Boye Mafe would be a really, really good revamp to that defense. And I know they drafted Derek Hall last year, but I don't think he's going to be a starter in the league. I think he's going to be a really good rotational pass rusher. So with the 16th overall pick, we are going to go with Jared Verse. Moving on to 17, we're going to look to get Trevor Lawrence some protection. I'd probably like to do. A lot of the tackles are off the board, but there's still one that I think is a really, really solid option, and that's Amarius Mims. So we're going to go with Amarius Mims here with the 17th overall pick. Moving on to 18, we got the Bengals, and I know a lot of people like doing this pick, but it's just because it makes so much sense. The Bengals need interior defensive line help, and Jerzon Newton is one of the better interior defensive prospects in the class. You could also go with a guy like Byron Murphy, Tavondre Sweat, someone like that, but I think Jerzon Newton is probably the only guy you would consider here. I mean, Byron Murphy, maybe. I do think Byron Murphy can be a first rounder, but top 18, I'm not too sure about. So we're going to go with Jerzon Newton, who's a bit undersized, but can rush the passer like with the best of them. So we're going to go with Jerzon Newton there. Moving on to 19, we got the LA Rams. And really the Rams, aside from interior defensive line, the Rams really need help everywhere on that defense. So I think it's going to be a bit of a BPA here, at least on the defense. So it's really between Cooper DeJean, Terrion Arnold, Leatu Latu. Maybe not so much Leatu Latu just because they do got Byron Young, who had a really good rookie season. It was between Cooper DeJean and Terrion Arnold. And I do think Cooper DeJean is the best cornerback prospect, but I don't see him going first off the board. I think, Nate Wiggins and Khalil McKinstry are going to go before him, but Cooper DeJean's fallen way too much here. We're going to take him with the 19th pick. Moving on to 20, we got the Steelers, and it would have been nice if Amarius Mims fell to us here at 20, pairing him up with former teammate Broderick Jones, but we could look. There's not really another good tackle I would be okay with at pick 20. So really, I think cornerback would be the next best option. But Terrion Arnold still on the board, a guy that's super athletic, who got targeted a lot last year. So, we got to see a lot of film on how he kind of defends. So we're going to go with Terrion Arnold here, really high upside guy. Pairing him up with JPJ or Joey Porter Jr., I think that would be a really, really good defensive back room. Moving on to 21 here, we got the Dolphins. And with Teron Armstead always being injured and getting up there in age, I think offensive line is a pick here, or at least, is an option here. So we could go with a guy like Jordan Morgan. Who else do we have here? Troy Fautanu is listed as a tackle, but I think he's going to be a guard at the next level with tackle flexibility. And I think that's perfect for what the Dolphins need. Their guards aren't that great. And if Teron Armstead does get injured throughout this next season, I think Troy Fautanu could shift over to left tackle if need be. So I think Troy Fautanu will be a good versatile piece for the Dolphins. And moving on to 22, we got the Eagles. And they could look to get that third receiver with a guy like Brian Thomas still on the board, Troy Franklin. But I think they also got needs at cornerback and tackle. So we're going to look at the cornerbacks here. What are the cornerbacks looking like? We got Ennis Rakestraw, Kamari Lassiter, Quinion Mitchell, and TJ Tampa. I think those are the 4 that could go in this range. I'm a bit higher on Kamari Lassiter than probably the consensus. I do think Kamari Lassiter is a solidified first-round pick, and we know how he loves the Georgia defenders. So just based on this storyline fact, I'm going to go with Kamari Lassiter. I could also see them going Quinion Mitchell as well. And even TJ Tampa. I think Ennis Rakestraw is probably the 4th best corner still on the board. So, but we are going to go with Kamari Lassiter just to keep that Georgia Bulldog defense storyline going. Moving on here to 23, we got the Texans. And CJ Stroud is coming off a really good rookie year. And with Tank Dell most likely going to be back by the start of the next season, and Nico Collins having a breakout year, I think getting that 3rd receiver could be a really solid option for him, especially with Brian Thomas still on the board. Troy Franklin could also go around this range. But I think the pick's going to be Brian Thomas. You would have Brian Thomas and Nico on the outside, 2 really big kind of deep threats, and then having Tank Dell in the middle there, that's able to get open with ease in the slot. I think that could be an amazing core with CJ Stroud at quarterback. So we're going to go with Brian Thomas here. I think that's a great pick, and Texas fans are probably going to love that pick. Moving on to the Cowboys at 24, you could look to go offensive line here, but also with Leatu Latu just staring you down right here at pick 24, I think he's slid enough. And with DeMarcus Lawrence getting up there in age, and I'm not sure what his contract looks like, but he can't be under contract for too much longer. Pairing up Leatu Latu and Micah Parsons could be very scary. So we're going to go with Leatu Latu here. Not necessarily because it's a massive need for the Cowboys, but teams draft BPA all the time. And Leatu Latu falling to 24, even with his injury concerns, I think that's just, way too far of a slide for him to keep sliding. Moving on to 25, we got the Packers. And with David Bakhtiari up there in age and always injured, similar to Teron Armstead, I think tackle could be an option here. And I really do like Jordan Morgan. I also like, let's look at the tackles. I'm not a big fan, but I do really like Patrick Paul. Tyler Guyton, I don't think is a first round pick. Greg Barnes is a guard. And Kaylee Suamataia, I really like too, but he's about a fringe first round guy for me. The only other tackle here that I think should go in the first round is Jordan Morgan. So we're going to go with Jordan Morgan here. Moving on to 26, we have the Buccaneers, who had a really good season with Baker Mayfield at the helm. Now, I do think he deserves to come back, so I don't think the Bucs are going to be looking for a quarterback here. So I think they should probably look maybe edge rusher. And with Braylon Trace here, that's weird how they got Chris Braswell above Braylon Trace. I do not agree with that. I do like Chris Braswell, but not as much as I like Braylon Trace. Braylon Trace is a pressure machine. I mean, he can create pressure with ease. And with Shaq Barrett getting up there in age and an expiring contract, I think pairing Braylon Trace up with Yaya Diaby is going to be a really scary sight. So we're going to go with Braylon Trace here at 26. Moving on to the Cardinals here at 27. We had them going Marvin Harrison Jr. with the 4th pick. And here at 27, I think you're going to look probably towards the defense. And they are very thin at the cornerback position. So let's look at the cornerbacks. Yeah, you have 3 really solid options here. I'm going to go with probably Quinion Mitchell. He's just a really athletic guy. And I know he's from Toledo. Try not to scout the helmet. I know he hasn't faced the best competition. But based on the competition he's faced, he's really good. He's a super athletic guy with a ton of speed. You look at his interception numbers and you would think he's a ball hawk, which I think he is. But he also had most of his picks against, I can't even remember what team it was. He had like 3 or 4 picks in that game, so his interception numbers, not last year but the year before, were a bit inflated. This year he only had 1 interception, but he had a ton of pass breakups. I think it was like 18. So, he's got really good ball skills. He's got a knack for breaking up passes. So we're going to go with Quinion Mitchell here with the 27th overall pick. Moving on here, we got the Buffalo Bills. And I think they're going to look to get their Gabe Davis replacement. And with a lot of solid options still on the board with Troy Franklin, Tez Walker, Keon Coleman, A.D. Mitchell, maybe even an Xavier Legette, I think that they got to look receiver here. And I really like Troy Franklin, but Stephon Diggs is more of that separator, route runner. Getting a big physical threat like a Keon Coleman, kind of being that lightning and thunder pairing with Josh Allen at quarterback. That's a that's a no-brainer for me. Moving on, we got the Kansas City Chiefs. I think they're also looking receiver and nowhere else. And so we're going to go straight to the receivers. And Rashee Rice has been really good for him. Don't know necessarily if he's a number one receiver in the NFL. And there's not many wide receiver ones left on the board, or at least potential wide receiver ones. I think it's really between A.D. Mitchell and Troy Franklin. And I'm a huge fan of Troy Franklin. Although I don't think he's a number one type receiver at the next level, I think he's the best player available, at least at the receiver position. So we're going to go Troy Franklin here for the Chiefs. Moving on to 30, we got the Lions. And the Lions, they have a really solid squad. I think this could be a bit of a luxury pick. And so we're going to look, you could go Chris Braswell here, pairing him up with Aiden Hutchinson on the opposite side. Ennis Rakestraw, because they do need a bit, they got Brian Branch in the slot, but on the outside they don't really have much. But I think Chris Braswell is a fringe first rounder. So I do think a team could draft him in the first round. And so we're going to go with Chris Braswell here at 30. Moving on to 31, we got the 49ers. And Trent Williams is still playing at an elite level, but he is up there in age, and he's going to regress, eventually. So why not try to get ahead of the curve and draft his replacement, have the replacement learn under Trent Williams for a year or two, and then eventually take his spot. So we're going to look at the tackles here. Patrick Paul, Tyler Guyton, the Yale tackle, who I'm not too familiar with. I know a lot of people like him. And then Kingsley Suamataia. I know I just said that Tyler Guyton is not a first-round caliber tackle, but he's a very raw prospect who has good potential. And having him just sit behind Trent Williams for a year or two to really learn and kind of grow in the position, I think I might be talking myself into Tyler Guyton here in the first round, which I'm almost never in agreement with. So we're going to do it here. Why not? Moving on to 32, we got the Ravens with the last pick of the first round, and they could look to go receiver here. Rashad Bateman's up for a new contract and hasn't really proven himself. Odell Beckham, that was more of a one-year rental. I don't think he's going to be coming back. So really all they have is Zay Flowers. So you could look to go with a receiver, but you could also look to go with a cornerback, because really, aside from Marlon Humphrey, they don't really have much. So it's really your pick of receiver or cornerback. So you got Rakestraw, TJ Tampa, or you could go with A.D. Mitchell, Xavier Legette, Tez Walker. Ladd McConkey I like, but he's more of a slot. I think we're going to go with either Ennis Rakestraw or TJ Tampa. TJ Tampa is more of the big physical guy. Ennis Rakestraw is more of that sticky, bit smaller guy. What's his measurables looking like? I don't remember off the top of my head. 6 foot 188. So yeah, bit of a smaller guy, bit of a leaner guy, but really sticky in coverage. So we're gonna go with Ennis Rakestraw here with the last pick of the first round. All right, moving on to the second round, we're gonna go through these a bit quicker. But I'll do my best to kind of give an explanation on why I picked the player. With the Panthers, they didn't have a pick in the first round, but you need to get Bryce Young some weapons, and I think it's almost guaranteed that they're going to go receiver here. Ladd McConkey, again, is really, really good, but more of that slot guy. I don't think the Panthers are going to want to draft a slot guy with their first pick. I think they need that receiver one. And A.D. Mitchell's still on the board here. I think that's a no-brainer. A.D. Mitchell's the only other receiver on the board that I think could end up being a wide receiver number one. So we're going to go with A.D. Mitchell there. Moving on to 34, we got the Patriots, who took Jaden Daniels with the first in the first round. So I think going to the defensive side of the ball, and with TJ Tampa still on the board and Kalen King, I think TJ Tampa could be the pick here. I mean, they really don't have no one at cornerback, so I think this is just a positional need, and we're going to go with TJ Tampa here. Just a big, strong, physical corner. Moving on to 35, we got the Cardinals, who took Quinion Mitchell and Marvin Harrison in the first round. So really, you could look to go in a multiple different ways here. You could look to go with the interior of the offense, help that offense, or you could go maybe edge rusher. We're going to look in the interior. You got JPJ on the board. You got really your pick of the interior guys. I'm pretty sure isn't Graham Barton still on the board? Yeah, Graham Barton's still on the board. He's still listed as tackle, even though I think he's a guard. But who is the Cardinals center? I don't know off the top of my head. I'm drawing a blank. Oh yeah, I believe it's John Gaines, who was injured last year. So they could look to replace the center position. And I think JPJ is a really, really good player. He could make his way into the first round if a team gets really greedy for a center. We're going to go with JPJ here with the 35th overall pick. Moving on to the Commanders. I mean, they need a lot, really. We took Drake May with the the second overall pick. And now I think it's between edge rusher and tackle. I mean, last year, a main reason why Sam Howell didn't play great was because he was under pressure constantly. But they also traded away their two edge rushers in Montez Sweat and Chase Young. So really they have no one on that edge rushers. I mean the only guy that's really even notable on that defensive line, at least edge rusher wise, is probably KJ Henry. So I think edge rusher is a big, big need for him. So, and with a guy like, with a guy like Chop Robinson still on the board, a bit of a raw prospect, but I mean, he's got all the potential in the world. He's got a really, really high ceiling, which is something the Commanders really need. They need to take a swing on the home run pick. So we're going to go with Chop Robinson here with the 36th overall pick. Moving on to 37, we got the Chargers. They could look to go secondary here, maybe the first safety off the board, and a guy like Cameron Kitchens. Kind of have that lightning and thunder with Derwin James. Derwin James being that run defender who's going to deliver the big hit. Then Cameron Kitchen being that ball hawk who's going to get, a bunch of interceptions. I really like that. I just talked myself into it. So we're going to go with Cameron Kitchens here with the 37th overall pick for the Chargers. Moving on to the Titans, we could look to go receiver. D-Hop's, up there in age, and really not the same D-Hop that we, all know. Treylon Burks, I don't know if he's going to end up, being that number one guy. He's more of that number two guy at best. So you could look to go receiver here. Maybe a guy like Xavier Legette, Xavier Worthy, Tez Walker, Ladd McConkey. These are all solid options. And Treylon Burks is more that outside guy, deep threat. So getting a guy like Ladd McConkey in the slot could be a good option. Tez Walker could be another guy that kind of replaces Treylon Burks and be that number one guy. But I'm going to go with Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey is just too good to fall this far. Even though slot receivers and slot corners usually fall to the second round, even if you're really good. I mean, Ladd McConkey almost deserves to be a first-round pick, in my opinion. Like, he's really, really good. Moving on to my favorite team, the Giants again. We took Malik Neighbors in the first round. Now we could look to go with the interior of the defense. We traded away Leonard Williams, and guys like Jordan Riley and DJ Davidson are good, but they're not starter caliber, I don't think, or at least full-time starting caliber. So we could look to go with a guy like Leonard Taylor, Byron Murphy, Chris Jenkins, Tavondre Sweat's down there at 65. Wow. I think we're going to go with Byron Murphy. I think Byron Murphy, like I said earlier, could be a first-round pick. So with him falling to 39, I think that's a great, great, great pickup for the Giants. Moving on to the Commanders again, we went with Chop Robinson. We could look to go with the tackle, Graham Barton, Patrick Paul, the Yale tackle. They also need a tight end. And after Jatavion Sanders, the class really drops off. I mean, Cade Stover's a really solid tight end. I think he's more of a backup at the next level. A.J. Barner, Theo Johnson, Ben Sinnott, Jaheim Bell. Like, there's a noticeable drop-off. It goes Brock Bowers in Tier 1, Jatavion Sanders in tier 2, and then the rest in tier 3 and 4. Like, Jatavion Sanders is going to probably be in high demand just because of that. Teams are going to probably draft him a bit higher than he should just because there's no one after him, really. So we're going to go with Jatavion Sanders there at pick 40. 41, we got the Packers, and their secondary is a bit weak. I mean, they got Simone Biles' husband starting. I'm not even going to say his name. So we could look to go with safety here, and Tyler Nubin is just a really solid, do-good safety. Him and Cameron Kitchens are, neck and neck on who's the best safety in the class. And so we're going to go with Tyler Nubin here to replace Simone Biles' husband. Sorry, Simone. Moving on to 42, we got the Vikings. And like I said, I think Kirk Cousins is going to come back. We drafted, who did we get in the first round? We got Nate Wiggins in the first round. So we could look to go offense here. And I know they traded for Cam Akers. Alexander Madison's not lived up to the hype. They got Ty Chandler, DeWayne McBride. They don't really got that really solid running back. And although this is a bit of a weaker running back class, I do think teams always reach on running backs. I really don't think a team's going to reach in the first round this year, but we see that almost every year, and a team ends up doing it. So we're going to go. I don't think there's a top 50 caliber running back, but we're going to have the Vikings reaching a bit, and we're going to go Trey Benson, just a really all around good running back. He's got really good contact balance. He's pretty shifty for his size, at least. So we're going to go with Trey Benson there. A bit of a fun pick for the Vikings. Moving on to 43, we got the Bears. This is the Atlanta pick that they traded for Justin Fields. And I think we're going to take this pick to kind of improve the offense. Because we went, where did we go? We went Dallas Turner and then Caleb Williams. So yeah, we're going to look to pair up someone with DJ Moore. And I think it's between Devontae Walker and Xavier Legette. I really, really like Xavier Legette. I think he could be a DK Metcalf / AJ Brown type receiver if he reaches his fullest potential. So we're going to go with Xavier Legette here, pairing him up with DJ Moore. Moving on to 44, we got the Raiders. And like I said, the Raiders are looking for a quarterback as well as the Saints. I think both teams could end up going Michael Penix, Bo Nix back to back. The question is, who do I think the Raiders would want more? And I'm thinking we go Michael Penix. I mean, he just had a really good college football playoffs. Didn't end up winning the Natty, but played pretty good. So we're going to go with Michael Penix here for the Raiders. And then we're just going to go Bo Nix here for the Saints. Both teams need a quarterback. Drafting a quarterback in round 2, you're willing to live with them not becoming franchise quarterbacks, but you got to swing. So that's what they did. Moving on to 46, we got the Colts. We drafted Rome Odunze in the first round. We could look to go defense, and their linebackers aren't the best. I mean, EJ Speed is meh. So we could look to go with the first linebacker off the board with Edrin Cooper, Jeremiah Trotter. Payne Wilson's probably the best linebacker, but injury concerns, and he's a bit of an older prospect. I don't think he's going to, be the first linebacker off the board, although he might be the best. So it's between Edrin Cooper and Jeremiah Trotter. I'm going to go Jeremiah Trotter, even though I know a lot of people like Edrin Cooper more. But I think Jeremiah Trotter is more that linebacker mold. Moving on to 47, we got the Giants again. We took Byron Murphy, right? Yeah, Byron Murphy with the 39th overall pick. So with this pick, we could look to go with offensive line. I mean, Evan Neal, I think the Giants believe in Evan Neal, so I think they're going to give him another shot at right tackle. Andrew Thomas is a top left tackle in the league. We drafted John Michael Schmitz in the second round last year to play center. So really our guards are the question marks. And with Graham Barton listed as a tackle, he's going to be a really good guard at the next level. And him falling to 47 is a steal for the Giants as well. So we're going to go with Graham Barton there. Moving on to 48, we got the Jaguars, and I think they could look to get more weapons for Trevor Lawrence, maybe go receiver Tez Walker, but I think they could also go with the interior of the defense. And I think T'Vondre Sweat's fallen quite a bit here. So although they got him ranked 65, I think he's more towards the 33. I really think T'Vondre Sweat and Leonard Taylor should be flip-flopped here on the board. So we're going to go with T'Vondre Sweat here for the Jaguars. Just a really big guy, and for his, how much does he weigh? Yeah, not many 360-pound guys move like T'Vondre Sweat, so he's a bit of a special athlete being 360 pounds. Moving on to 49, we got the Bengals, and I think this is where we could go Tez Walker to be that T. Higgins replacement, because I don't really think they're going to bring T. Higgins back. So we're going to go Tez Walker there for the Bengals. Moving on, we got the Eagles, who could also look for a receiver, and they could look to get their Quez Watkins replacement and another speedster. I'm pretty sure it's on the board. Yeah, Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy's got a bit of a dropping concern. He's cleaned it up last year. The year before, he was really bad, but he was also dealing with a hand issue. I think it was like a broken hand. So Xavier Worthy could be that speed threat, kind of like a Quez Watkins, but hopefully a bit better than him. Moving on to 51, we got the Rams. And I know I just said that Byron Murphy's had a really good rookie season, but besides him, who else do they have, really? So we're going to go with, let's look at the edge. Jonah Ellis or Adisa Isaac, or Gabriel Murphy, but I don't think he's going to go this early. I really like Jonah Ellis. Adisa Isaac's just a really solid player. I'm going to go with Jonah Ellis here at 51. Moving on to 52, we got the Steelers. Like I said in the first round, they could be looking to get a tackle to pair up with Broderick Jones. And like I said earlier as well, I really like Patrick Paul. I think he's a fringe first-round guy. So him falling to 52 is a steal for the Steelers. Steal for the Steelers. 53, we got the Dolphins. This could be a cornerback pick. Jalen Ramsey's getting up there in age. I mean, who else do they have besides him? Off the top of my head, I'm not even sure. Oh yeah, they got like Xavier Howard and Eli Apple. So I think getting a guy like Kalen King, who had a really good 2022, had a bit of an off season last season, but he's shown flashes of being a really good cornerback. So why not take a swing here at 53? Moving on to the Eagles once again, we just took Xavier Worthy to be that deep threat. Now let's look to get that Lane Johnson replacement. Similar to what the 49ers did with Tyler Guyton, I think the Eagles could do with Lane Johnson. So it's really between Kingsley Suamataia and then the Yale tackle. I know a lot of people like the Yale tackle. I haven't watched him yet, so I don't really want to include him if I'm not 100% sure of his play style even. So we're going to go with Kingsley Suamataia here at 54. Moving on to 55, we got the Browns. And the Browns linebacking core is also a bit thin, so we're going to go with Edgerrin Cooper here. He's fallen a bit more than I think he will, so there we go. 56, we got the Cowboys. And with the injury to Leighton Vander Esch, I think they could also be looking to go linebacker. And linebackers are going to be flying off the board here in a second. Tommy Eichenberg, I really like. He's got a bit of, athleticism concerns, so we're going to go with Peyton Wilson here. Again, probably the best linebacker in the class, but injury issues and uncertainty there are going to, it's going to have him sliding a bit. 57, we got the Packers. This could be a Leonard Taylor spot. Brandon Dorlus, Chris Jenkins. I think Leonard Taylor has the most upside out of the, rest of the interior guys still on the board. So we're going to go with Leonard Taylor there. Moving on to 58, we got the Buccaneers. And they do got some concerns on that interior of the offense. And so I really like Christian Haynes and Christian Mahogany. Both of them are, a bit unpolished, but, have pretty good upside. So we're going to go with Christian Haynes here at 58. At 59, we got the Texans. And I think DeMeco Ryans going to want to just keep building that defense. He drafted Will Anderson last year. I think getting someone on the interior is his next step. And a guy like Chris Jenkins, Rook Ororo, or however you say his name, Braden Fisk is getting a lot of hype right now. But I think Chris Jenkins is the most solid guy on this list so far. I think Chris Jenkins is the most solid guy on the board, at least on the interior of the defense. So we're going to go with Chris Jenkins out of Michigan. Here at 60, we got the Bills, and they really need help in the secondary, mainly cornerback. But I don't really like what we got right now. Mikey Sandstro, I don't even know how to say his name, but he's a really, really solid slot option who I think has fallen a bit too much. Rank 82 is a bit harsh for him. I thought the PFF guys really liked Mike, so that's a bit strange, but I think he'd be a solid pick here. I don't see him falling out of the second round, so we're going to go with Mikey here. Moving on to the Chiefs, I think they could look to go with the interior of the offensive line, and a guy like Christian Mahogany here, we're going to take him. 62, we got the Detroit Lions, who could look to go cornerback. They got Brian Branch, but on the outside, I mean, Cameron Sutton's a decent player, but they don't really have anyone solid there. So we could look to go with a guy like Josh Newton, who I haven't done too much tape watch on, but I do know he's a pretty good cornerback, so we're going to take him here at 62. Why not? 63 here, I think they could look to go with edge rusher. Chase Young might not be back, so why not get an insurance pick here and go Adisa Isaac? And then with the last pick in this mock draft, we got the Ravens. And I think that, let's look at tackle. Although, like I said, I'm not 100%, solid on the Yale tackle. I don't know much about him, but by the way people talk about him, he should be a second-round pick. So why not go with the Yale tackle here at the end of the draft? And so that's going to be it. That's my first 2-round mock draft of the kind of draft season. We're going to do a lot more 2-round, 3-round mock drafts as the kind of draft cycle moves forward. So let me know what you guys think of the draft. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. It really helps the channel out a lot. And as always, this is the Draft Nerd, and thanks for watching.